Welcome back to Common Knowledge, the show where I take a look at some Pauper cards and tell you if they are any good. Well, common cards, and tell you if they're any good in Pauper. They won't all be Pauper cards, but they will all be common cards. Let's talk about Defiant Kenra? Defiant Kenra. I think that's right. Defiant Kenra is 1 in a red for a 2/2 Jackal Warrior. That's it. Let's give it a 1.5. Vanilla creature. Next up is Guardian Priest. It is 1 in a white for a 1/2 human cleric. And for 1, you can pay 1 and tap it to tap target non-human creature. Whew. This is almost there. Right? What's the guy? I feel like I talk about him all the time. Is it Benalis Trapper? Is that the one I'm thinking of? It might be. That's not necessarily the one I'm thinking of, but that is a good. And Wrathy Trapper's the one from Planar Chaos that I think about too in black. But no, I can't remember who I'm thinking of. He's like a knight or a soldier. I think he's a soldier, but he does. I want to know. Is it almost Trooper, maybe? No, there's no such card. Oh, I don't know if I'll ever find this guy. He's in he's in my white border cube. I know that. He's like riding a zebra. I'm gonna find this guy. How about this? I know he's a human. I know he's white. I know he costs. Actually, I don't know what he can. Does he cost 2? I think he might cost 2. Actually, I think he's from Mara. No, he's from Tempest. That's probably good enough. Is he from Tempest? Also, is he going to have the art that I know him from? Also, shouldn't I say he's from Tempest? Idiot. Idiot. Did I do that already? I thought I did do that, but maybe I didn't. Anyway. That's my boy, Master Decoy. That's the one I always think of. Although I usually think of his of this art instead. But this is the guy. Whenever I say I'm thinking of a tapper or I'm talking about a tapper, I'm always thinking of Master Decoy. So 2 mana for a 1/2. For a white mana, you tap target creature. Okay. Think about that guy. Keep it in your mind. Now we look at Guardian Priest. Same mana cost, same power and toughness, slightly different creature type. Clerics and soldiers. I think soldiers are probably a little bit better. They're a little bit more soldier tribal than there is cleric tribal. Here's the only difference. Instead of paying a single white mana, you're paying a colorless mana, so a generic mana. So you can pay any color mana for that. And you can only tap a non-human creature instead of just tapping any creature. I think Master Decoy is the card I would generally tend to use if I really wanted a tapper in my deck, in my Pauper deck. This is kind of close. I would probably think about using that if I was splashing another color, if I was Azorius or wasn't just mono white. If I was mono white, Master Decoy all the way. But if I throw another color in there, I might consider playing this. But there are a lot of humans. There's a ton of humans out there. And not being able to tap those guys makes this card a real feel bad. But it has its uses. It can potentially be a little bit better in some cases. So I'm going to give this guy a 2.2. Master Decoy would get a little bit more than that. Okay, let's talk about a Spider-Man card that is actually okay in Pauper. And I bought a couple copies of this, and I kind of hate that I did because I don't really want to play Spider-Man cards in my Magic the Gathering, but we'll talk about it anyway. Spider-Man Web Slinger is 2 and a white for a 3/3 legendary human or spider human hero. And he has web slinging for a single white mana. So you can cast the spell for white if you also return a tapped creature you control to its owner's hand. This is good for a couple of reasons. One, it's not bad in any kind of bouncy decks that want to bounce creatures, your Glinthawks or your Core Skyfisher kind of decks. You play your Refurbished Familiar in your Orzhov Blade deck, you swing with it, and you attack with it, and then you can web sling out this guy and put your Refurbished Familiar back in your hand and then replay your Refurbished Familiar. It's pretty good. Single mana for a 3/3, also pretty good. Nothing wrong with that. You're getting a pretty good deal. Also, Cast Down is one of the most popular creature killer spells in the format, and that is destroy target non-legendary creature. Spider-Man's a legendary creature, so they can't cast this thing down. There are reasons to use this card. I have not seen it really break through. I think people experimented with it a little bit when it first came out. And we tried it, we tested it. That's why I bought 4 copies just to have it, just thinking, maybe this will come in handy one day. And every time I open up my Orzhov Blade deck to think, should I put this guy in? Should I try a couple copies? And I look at what's in the deck, and I go, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't see what it replaces. I don't find enough value from this. I can see value, but I don't see the value compared to the other cards that I have. I don't see the opportunity cost being enough to justify this in my Orzhov Blade deck. And I haven't seen anybody else play an Orzhov Blade deck that does use it. And also, Orzhov Blade isn't really played as much anymore. I still love it. It's my favorite color combination, and I really like how the deck plays. But it's not a Pauper staple like it was, maybe a year or two ago. We'll give Spider-Man Webslinger, I'm going to give it a 4.6. Undeniably useful card. You know where it goes. You see what it can do. I just don't. If this thing wasn't Spider-Man, would I try a little harder? Maybe. I might. I honestly might try a little harder to put this in a deck. But knowing that it's also a Spider-Man card, I think if I'm already a little on the fence about it, that kind of puts me on the wrong side of the fence to put this in the deck. So it's still a good card. 4.6 is a very good score for what we're doing here. It's better than, 80% of the Pauper cards or 80% of the common cards that we see. But it's still not quite there for me. I don't know. Pyroclastic Hellion is 4 and a red for a 4/5 Hellion. When this creature enters, you may return a land you control to its owner's hand. When you do, this creature deals 2 damage to each opponent. I think this would have to be a better rate to get me to do this. I understand in Zendikar Rising, this was probably not seen as much of a downside because that was a real landfall set. And so the idea of bringing a land back to your hand, probably fine, because now you get to play a land again and get those landfall triggers. And it's also a May. You don't have to do that. It could just be a vanilla 4/5 for 5. But to be a good Pauper card, I think this would have to cost 3 and force you to return the land back to your hand. And then we would have conversations about, okay, well, you play your Bojuka Bog and you exile their graveyard, and then you play Pyroclastic Hellion and you bounce the Bojuka Bog back to your hand, and then you have this 4/5 and you can exile their graveyard again. Okay, now we're talking. Your Colony Gardens, so you can play your Colony Gardens again. Your Adventurers Inn, your Radiant Fountain. Like, there are lands that do stuff when they come into play that you go, okay, yeah, it would be nice to be able to have that little extra value, but you need to have the downside be able to be turned into an upside to make a card like this valuable. And because they don't force you to do this, that you may return a land to your owner's hand, they have to make the card, a baseline generically okay. And I think that really hurts the card, honestly, for use in Pauper play anyway. We'll give this a 2.2. Move on to Dehydration, which is 3 and a blue for an enchantment. It's an aura. It enchants a creature, and an enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. Perfectly fine. Costs way too much. We have other effects that do this kind of thing now. The one, I believe, that gets played mostly these days. Bind the... typing. It's difficult. Bind the monster, which single blue mana, costs 3 less. That's a big deal. Chance the creature, you tap the enchanted creature, so that's also a big deal, that you get the tap. Now, it does deal a bunch of damage to you, potentially, but then it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So you play Bind the monster way more often than you play Dehydration. It's just way cheaper and way better, and you don't mind the little bit of a downside of taking some damage with it. So Dehydration just doesn't have a place anymore. There are other cards that do similar kinds of effects that maybe aren't as good as Bind the Monster, but are still way better than Dehydration. Dehydration then just is a card without a place, and we'll end up giving it a 1.3. Just cost too much. Palace Guard is 2 and a white for a 1/4 human soldier that can... this creature can block any number of creatures. Kind of fun. Not particularly great. Like, sure, it could block 3 creatures, but it's only got 1 power, so it might kill one of them in return. This is kind of a fog in a way, that if your opponent is swinging in with a giant sea of red creatures, yeah, I could block them all once, and then this thing dies. And a white fog that costs 3 that it ends up being a creature. I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it at all. The only way that I see it working, and I really don't see it working here either, but is in like a Bogle's deck where you can load this thing up with enchantments, specifically Vigilance. You want to make sure this thing has Vigilance. But if you give this thing Vigilance, now you can swing in with this big creature and then also block anything that your opponent comes in with, except, I guess, a flyer, unless you give this flying some way. It's a lot of hoops. It's a lot of hoops to jump through for what is basically a fog, and I don't even think it's a particularly very good fog. So let's give this a 1.5. Pretty bad. Next up, Lifted by Clouds, a Champions of Kamigawa card, so obviously going to be good. Or obvious that I'm going to like it, but it will be bad. That is what that actually means. Lifted by Clouds is 2 and a blue for an instant. That's also an arcane spell. Target creature gains flying until end of turn. It also has Splice onto arcane for 1 and a blue. So as you cast an arcane spell, you can reveal this card from your hand and pay its Splice cost. And if you do, you add this card's effects to that spell. So you get to keep this spell in your hand, play this spell on a later turn, or on this turn after you cast the other spell. But you also get the effect on the first arcane spell that you cast. So that's pretty cool. And this is also an arcane spell, so if you have other Splice cards, you can splice their effects onto this card. Splice, I think, is interesting. I don't think we have enough good arcane cards or enough good Splice on arcane cards specifically, outside of a couple, and they were only good because of the High Tide decks, and now that High Tide is banned in the format again, those cards aren't very good anymore, and we've just kind of put them to the wayside. Anyway, I don't think Magic's ever going to go back to using arcane spells. We had Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, and they didn't do arcane spells then, and that was really the only time that maybe we had a chance. And since they didn't do it then, I don't think they'll ever do it. So we're just stuck with the arcane spells that we have, and all of them are a little bit disappointing. They all cost a little bit too much, but the idea that you could splice spells onto other spells is all right. In any case, this one specifically, giving a target creature flying until end of turn for 3 mana, even for 2 mana for the splice, is more mana than you want to pay for this effect. We'll look at Flight. We'll look at the cool 6th edition one. Flight, that's just an enchantment. It's not an instant, so not exactly a 1-to-1. There are ones that do basically this, though. But you can give an enchanted creature flying for 1 mana. Not 3 mana, not 2 mana, 1 mana. And that's just better than this. I do love the art. Look at this guy. He was never meant to fly. He can now. Lifted by Clouds. Pretty bad card. I'll give it a 1.2. Pretty bad. Scorn Effigy is 3 mana for an artifact creature Scarecrow. It's a 2/3, and it's also got Foretell for 0. So during your turn, we've talked about Foretell very recently, but you can... Did we talk about it on this one? No, we talked about it on the last episode. During your turn, you can pay 2, exile this card from your hand face down. On a later turn, you cast it for its Foretell cost. So this is pretty much a morph, except it's not a 2/2 creature when it's face down. It's like still a spell that's off the table that can't really be interacted with, but you can then play a 2/3 on a later turn for free. Free's cool, but free also means that you still had to pay the 2 on 1 turn to get this. Or you can pay 3 for the creature itself. So you do get a bit of a discount if you drew the foretelling thing. Are you really going to spend your turn 2 to foretell this, and then turn 3 you get to just play it for free? I don't know. Pretty bad, honestly. I don't love it. I don't really like it at all. And we'll go ahead. What do we give something like this? It's really pretty bad. We've gotten a couple of really bad cards. I'll give this a 1.4. Next card is Sunspire Griffin. It is 1 white for a 2/3 Flying Griffin. This thing costs 3, is 2/3, doesn't fly. This thing costs 3, is a 2/3, and does fly. So I would say it's better than the other one. It's still not very good. It's still just a French vanilla card. And, I don't know. Let's give that a 1.5, I guess. Final card of the day, Revive. Here's a decent card. Revive is 1 and a green for a sorcery. Return target green card from your graveyard to your hand. Okay. Yeah. I think that's pretty good. Like, what's regrowth these days? Regrowth is 1 on a green for a sorcery, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So regrowth strictly better than a revive. Although revive, you're already playing green, so maybe you have enough green cards that this is worth that. Regrowth was... Oh, regrowth is only in... Is regrowth ever common? No, I guess not. So you never had the option for regrowth. Okay. Sorry, not legal in Pauper for regrowth. So in that instance, okay, this is what you got. But, I don't know. I don't think green has enough spells that matter for you to bring back. You see effects like this in blue because you have like Archaeomancer, and you use Archaeomancer in Pauper because it allows you to get instants and sorcery spells back, and you use that a little bit more because you have more spells that really matter. I guess you could get creatures back that, if the creature dies... Yeah, I don't know. I think you probably just end up playing like a Pulsa Marasa instead, which can get a creature or land back from your graveyard to your hand, and you gain 6 life. And that costs 3, but I think it's probably worth it a little bit more than this one is. Was this our last card or was this a bonus card? I don't remember. It's not our. I haven't done the slash yet, so this was our last card. So we'll give this. I'll give it like a 3.2. I mean, it's still getting a green card, getting a card back from your graveyard to your hand for 2 mana. That's all right. That's all right. Like it's a card. It doesn't have to be a creature card. I guess it can't be a land card because lands don't have colors. Still, it's okay. I'll stick with my score. Let's do a bonus card. Get out of here after that. It's Serulf's Packmate. For 3 and a green, you get a 3/3 wolf, and when this creature enters, you draw a card. And it also has Foretell. We've had a lot of Foretell cards recently. So you can Foretell it for 1 and a green. So you are paying for this in installments. You're paying the 2 mana on 1 turn and then paying 1 and a green. So you basically are just paying what it costs. But you could play this on turn 3 instead of on turn 4. Okay. I mean, when it enters, it draws a card. Drawing cards are great. But unless you're flickering this, and if you're flickering this, you're probably in colors that can draw you cards better, better than this one can, better and cheaper. I don't think Serulf's Packmate is all that good. It makes me a little sad because I really do like Serulf as a card. I've been thinking about making a Serulf commander deck for a long time, but this one's not gonna make my deck. I do not think so. Let's go ahead and give this I'm gonna give it 3, straight up 3. We'll call it a day there. Thanks so much for joining me. We'll see you next time.